Hello, and welcome back. It's so nice to have you here with me again. Outside, I imagine the rain is falling, or maybe you're just imagining it with me. Either way, let's pretend the world has grown soft and quiet. Let's pretend the city lights are blurring through wet glass, and the only thing that matters right now is this moment. Tonight's episode is called Neon Reflections. I'll be sharing 5 calm, true-to-life stories with you, each one set in the gentle hours of a rainy night in the city. We'll visit a late-night diner where the coffee never runs out. We'll take a slow walk through quiet streets, where every puddle holds a little piece of the sky. We'll stop at a night market for something warm and simple. Time for 100 minutes. We'll sit on a train platform and let the world pass by. And finally, we'll come home, to a warm apartment where everything feels safe and still. Before we begin, if you enjoy these rainy bedtime diaries, I'd be so grateful if you could like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. It really helps, and it means more cozy nights like this one. Now, get comfortable. Adjust your pillow, let your shoulders drop, take a slow breath in, and let it out. Let's begin with our first story, the late night diner. It was almost 11 when I stepped out of the taxi. The rain had been falling for hours by then. Not heavy, just steady. The kind of rain that makes the whole city feel like it's wrapped in something soft. I paid the driver and watched him pull away, his taillights becoming 2 red smears in the wet street. Then I turned toward the diner. It was called Lou's, though I'd never met anyone named Lou. The sign was old, the letters slightly crooked, and the O flickered every few seconds like it was thinking about giving up. But the windows glowed warm and golden, and that was enough to draw me in. The door chimed when I pushed it open, a soft, old-fashioned bell. Inside, the air smelled like coffee and butter, and something faintly sweet. Maybe pie, maybe just the memory of pie from 100 other nights. The diner was nearly empty. A man in a gray jacket sat at the end of the counter, hunched over a newspaper. 2 women shared a booth near the window, speaking in low, comfortable voices. And behind the counter, a woman with silver-streaked hair wiped down the coffee machine with the slow ease of someone who had done this 1,000 times. I chose a seat near the middle of the counter, not too close to anyone, not too far from everything. The stool creaked slightly as I sat down, and the vinyl was cool beneath me before my warmth spread into it. The waitress looked up and smiled. It wasn't a big smile, but it was real. "Rainy night," she said, setting a laminated menu in front of me. "It is," I agreed. "Now you look like you could use some coffee." "Please." She poured me a cup without asking how I took it. The coffee was dark and hot, steam curling up toward the low ceiling. I wrapped both hands around the mug and let the warmth sink into my fingers. Outside, the rain continued its gentle rhythm against the windows. Cars passed occasionally, their headlights smearing through the wet glass. But inside, everything felt still, protected. I didn't look at the menu right away. Instead, I let my eyes wander around the diner, taking in the small details I'd never noticed before. There was a row of pie displays behind the counter, cherry, lemon meringue, and something chocolate that glistened under the soft lights. Above them, a chalkboard listed the specials in faded handwriting: meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and gravy. A clock shaped like a coffee cup hung on the wall, its hands moving in the slow, unhurried way of all diner clocks. The floor was checkered tile, black and white, worn smooth in paths where 1,000 feet had walked before mine. The counter was formica, pale green with tiny gold flecks, the kind of thing that felt nostalgic even though I was too young to remember when it was new. The man at the end of the counter turned a page of his newspaper. The sound was soft, papery, comforting. I wondered what he was reading. Sports scores, maybe, or the crossword. Something quiet to fill the quiet hours. The two women in the booth laughed, not loudly, just warmly. One of them reached across the table to touch the other's hand. Old friends, I thought, or sisters. People who had known each other long enough that silence between them meant nothing. I finally looked at the menu. The options were simple. Breakfast all day, a few sandwiches, soup, and pie. I wasn't particularly hungry, but the idea of eating something warm felt right. When the waitress came back, I ordered toast and scrambled eggs. And more coffee when you have a chance, I added. She nodded, wrote nothing down, and disappeared through the swinging door to the kitchen. I pulled out my phone, but the screen felt too bright in this soft space. I set it face down on the counter and let my thoughts drift instead. I thought about the day I'd had, meetings, emails, small decisions that felt bigger than they were. I thought about the rain and how it had started around lunchtime, gentle at first, then steady, then constant. I thought about how nice it was to be somewhere warm and dry, while the weather did whatever it wanted outside. There was something about late-night diners that made time feel different. The outside world grew distant, muffled. The only things that mattered were the warmth, the coffee, and the soft sounds of other people existing peacefully nearby. My food arrived on a white ceramic plate, slightly chipped at one edge. The eggs were fluffy and pale yellow. The toast was golden brown, butter melting into it in slow, shiny rivulets. There was a small dish of jam. Strawberry, I thought, from the color. "Thank you," I said. The waitress refilled my coffee without being asked. "Take your time," she said. "We're open all night." I ate slowly, savoring each bite. The eggs were simple but good, salted just right, soft in the middle. The toast crunched when I bit into it, then gave way to that warm, buttery center. I spread a little jam on one corner and tasted sweetness and summer. Outside, a bus passed by, its windows lit up with the silhouettes of late-night travelers. I watched it disappear into the rain, its lights growing fainter, until they were just another smear of color in the wet night. The man with the newspaper folded it neatly and set it on the counter. He finished his coffee, left a few bills beside his empty cup, and nodded at the waitress as he stood. "Night, Eddie," she said. "Night, Marlene," he replied. The bell chimed as he left, and a gust of rain-scented air swept through the diner before the door closed again. I realized I liked it here, not just tonight, but in general. There was something about places like this, places that stayed open when everything else closed, places that welcomed whoever wandered in from the rain. They didn't ask why you were there or how long you planned to stay. They just gave you coffee, a warm seat, and permission to exist for a while. The two women in the booth gathered their things slowly, still talking, still smiling. One of them shrugged on a raincoat, bright yellow, cheerful against the dark night. The other wrapped a scarf around her neck, a soft gray that matched her silver earrings. They waved at the waitress, Marlene, as they left, and I heard them laughing as the door swung closed behind them. Now it was just me. Marlene came around the counter with a rag and wiped down the booth where the women had been sitting. Her movements were unhurried, practiced. She hummed something under her breath, a tune I almost recognized but couldn't name. "Quiet night?" I said, not really meaning to speak. She looked up and smiled. "They're the best ones." I finished my eggs and pushed the plate aside. My coffee was still half full, warm enough to be comforting. I wrapped my hands around the mug again and watched the rain trace patterns down the window. Each droplet caught the light differently, sometimes gold, sometimes red, sometimes white. They merged and separated, racing each other to the bottom of the glass in slow motion. I found it strangely hypnotic. Marlene brought me a slice of pie without asking. Cherry, with a lattice crust dusted with powdered sugar. "On the house," she said when I started to protest. "It's been sitting there all day, and you look like someone who could use a little sweetness." I didn't know what she saw in my face that made her say that, but I didn't argue. "Thank you," I said softly. She nodded, patted the counter once, and went back to her quiet tasks. The pie was perfect. The crust was flaky, the cherry sweet with just a hint of tartness. The whole thing warm enough that I could feel it spreading comfort through me with each bite. I ate slowly, making it last. Outside, the rain picked up slightly. I could hear it drumming on the awning over the door. Inside, the clock ticked. The coffee machine hissed softly. Marlene hummed. The world felt very small and very safe. I thought about the city out there. All those buildings, all those windows, all those lives happening behind them. People sleeping, people working night shifts, people watching late night television with the volume turned low. People like me, sitting alone in diners, finding comfort in simple things. We were all sharing the same rain, I realized, the same night. Even if we didn't know each other's names, we were all wrapped in the same quiet darkness, waiting for morning. The door chimed and a young woman came in, shaking rain from her umbrella. She was wearing a long coat and sneakers, her hair slightly damp despite the umbrella's protection. "Just coffee, please," she said, sliding onto a stool a few seats down from me. Marlene poured her a cup, and the woman wrapped her hands around it just like I had done. "Time 400 millers." She caught my eye and gave me a small, tired smile. I smiled back. Nothing more needed to be said. I finished my pie and my coffee. The check came to less than $10, and I left Marlene double that. She didn't count it in front of me, just nodded and said, "Come back soon." "I will," I promised. At the door, I paused and looked back at the diner one more time. The light was golden. The counter gleamed. Marlene was refilling the new arrival's coffee, saying something that made her laugh. It was such a small scene, but it felt important. A tiny pocket of warmth in a cold, wet world. I pushed through the dagger and stepped back into the rain. The cold hit me immediately, but I didn't mind. I still had that warmth inside me. The coffee, the pie, the quiet kindness of strangers. I opened my umbrella and started walking, the neon signs reflecting in puddles at my feet. The night was far from over, but something about it already felt complete. And as I walked, I thought about how many nights like this one I'd almost missed. How many times I'd hurried home instead of stopping, instead of sitting, instead of letting a diner hold me for an hour or two. night I was glad I'd stopped. Tonight I'd remember. The rain continued to fall, gentle and steady. And somewhere behind me, the diner's light still glowed, waiting for the next soul who needed a warm seat and a cup of coffee. My feet carried me forward, and the city stretched out ahead of me, all neon and shadow, all rain and light. I wasn't sure where I was going next, but that was okay. The night was young, the rain was soft, and I was exactly where I needed to be. Our second story is called Rainy Street Walk. After I left the diner, I didn't call for a ride home. Something about the night made me want to stay inside it a little longer. The rain had softened to a mist, and the air smelled clean, like wet pavement and distant flowers, like the city had taken a long, slow breath. I decided to walk. Time 700 minutes. The streets were mostly empty at this hour. A few cars passed, their tires hissing on the wet asphalt, their headlights cutting bright paths through the darkness. But the sidewalks were mine. I walked slowly, in no hurry to be anywhere. My umbrella cast a small circle of dry space around me, but I didn't really need it for the mist. I kept it open anyway. There was something comforting about the soft drumming of occasional raindrops on the fabric above my head. The neighborhood I was walking through was a mix of old and new. Brownstones with wrought iron railings stood next to modern apartments with glass balconies. Small shops lined the street, a dry cleaner, a bakery that was closed for the night, a pharmacy with a glowing green cross in its window. Each storefront had its own personality, its own quiet presence. Even closed and dark, they felt alive somehow, like they were just resting, waiting for morning to bring customers and conversation back through their doors. I passed a bookstore I'd never noticed before. Its window displayed a jumble of hardcovers and paperbacks, arranged around a small lamp that someone had left on. The light spilled out onto the wet sidewalk, gold against gray. I stopped and looked at the titles. Mystery novels, mostly. A few classics. A handwritten sign that said staff picks, with little paper tags describing each choice. One of the tags read, "For rainy nights and quiet, hearts." I smiled and kept walking. The mist gathered on my face, cool and gentle. I wiped my cheek with the back of my hand and tilted my umbrella slightly, letting myself feel more of the weather. There was something about rain that made me feel both small and connected. Small, because the sky was so vast and I was just one person walking through it. Connected because everyone else in the city was sharing the same rain, the same night, the same gentle wash of water from the clouds. I turned onto a quieter street, where the buildings were taller and the shops gave way to residential entrances. Lobby lights glowed through glass doors. A few windows higher up were still lit. Yellow squares against the dark facades, signs of lives being lived behind curtains. I wondered about the people behind those windows. Were they reading? Watching television? Having quiet conversations with someone they loved? Maybe they were looking out at the rain, just like I was walking through it. A cat appeared from an alleyway, its fur sleek and dark. It paused when it saw me, its eyes catching the light from a nearby street lamp. We regarded each other for a moment, two beings out in the rain, each on our own mysterious errand. "Hello," I said softly. The cat blinked, then slipped away into the shadows. I liked that exchange, brief and wordless, but somehow real. The next block had a small park. just a patch of green with a few benches and a wrought iron fence. The trees were heavy with rain, their leaves dripping softly onto the grass below. A streetlight at the corner cast long shadows through the branches. I stopped for a moment to watch. The droplets caught the light as they fell, tiny diamonds appearing and disappearing in the air. The grass glistened. The air smelled like earth and green things growing. Even in the middle of the city, nature found its way through. I walked on, past closed cafes and quiet corners, past a laundromat where the machines sat still and silent, past a flower shop with buckets of roses on the sidewalk, their petals beaded with rain. Each step felt deliberate, each breath felt clear. I wasn't exercising or getting somewhere. I was just walking, just being. An older couple passed me, sharing one umbrella. They were walking arm in arm, their shoulders pressed together, their steps perfectly matched. Neither of them spoke, but the silence between them looked comfortable, practiced. The woman glanced up as they passed me and nodded. A small acknowledgement, stranger to stranger. I nodded back and felt warmer for it. At the next corner, the rain picked up slightly. Not quite a downpour, but more than mist now. I stepped under an awning to wait it out, lowering my umbrella and shaking the droplets from its canopy. The awning belonged to a closed tea shop. Through the dark window, I could see rows of ceramic teapots and stacked tins of loose-leaf blends. A small sign in the corner listed the hours, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I made a mental note to come back sometime, to sit by that window in daylight and drink something warm while watching people pass. Standing under the awning, I became aware of the sounds around me. The rain on the fabric overhead, the gurgle of water in a nearby drain, the distant hum of a ventilation system from one of the buildings, the far-off honk of a car horn muffled by the weather. Each sound layered on the others, creating a kind of music, the city's lullaby. After a few minutes, the rain eased again. I opened my umbrella and continued walking. The streets grew wider as I moved toward what I knew was a main avenue a few blocks away. The buildings here were older, with carved stone details and heavy wooden doors. Some had brass plaques by the entrances. Law offices, architectural firms, the occasional dental practice. By day, this area was bustling. By night, it belonged to the rain and me. I crossed an intersection and paused in the middle of a wide, empty plaza. During the day, this space was full of food carts and street performers, office workers eating lunch on the low stone walls. But now it was empty, just wet flagstones and the soft patter of rain. I stood there for a moment, feeling the openness of the space. Looking up, I could see a sliver of sky between the buildings. Dark gray, low clouds, no stars, but beautiful anyway. On the far side of the plaza, a single figure sat on a bench under a small shelter. A young man, headphones on, staring at his phone. He was wearing a hoodie and had a backpack at his feet. I didn't approach or disturb him. We were just two people sharing the same rain, the same city, the same quiet hour. That felt like enough. I walked on, following a street that curved gently downhill. The puddles grew larger here, reflecting the streetlights in wobbly golden pools. I stepped around them carefully, watching the reflections ripple when the rain touched them. Each puddle held a little piece of the sky, a little piece of the light. Together, they made the wet street look like something from a painting. Impressionistic, blurred, beautiful. A taxi passed slowly, its available light off, its driver hunched over the wheel. Heading home after a long shift, maybe. I waved anyway, a pointless reflex, and kept walking. The buildings on the street were shorter, more colorful. A row of townhouses painted in faded pastels. Blue, pink, cream, sage green. Window boxes with sleeping flowers. Iron gates leading to tiny front gardens. Someone had left a wind chime on one of the porches, and it sang softly as the breeze moved through it. I thought about my own apartment waiting for me at the end of this walk. The lamp in the window I'd left on. The couch with its soft blanket thrown over the arm. The kettle I would put on when I finally came home. But I wasn't ready yet. There was something about this walk that I wanted to keep inside me a little longer. The peace of it. The slowness. I turned down an alley I'd never explored before. It was narrow, lined with the back entrances of shops and restaurants, dumpsters and delivery pallets, a forgotten bicycle chained to a railing. But even here, there, was beauty. A string of fairy lights someone had forgotten to turn off, draped over a fire escape. A mural on a back wall, colorful birds in flight, their wings spread wide. The rain made everything glisten. I emerged onto another street, busier than the last few. A bar was open on the corner, its windows steamy, music spilling out whenever the door swung open. People stood under its awning, smoking and laughing, their voices warm against the night. I didn't go in. I just walked past, letting their laughter fold into the sounds of the rain. Part of the city's soundtrack, part of the night. A few blocks later, I found myself on a bridge, nothing dramatic. Just a small footbridge over a narrow canal that cut through this part of the city. The water below was dark, rippling with rain. Streetlights reflected in it, stretching into long, wavering columns of gold. I stopped in the middle of the bridge and rested my arms on the railing. The rain fell around me, into the canal, onto my umbrella, into the darkness. I watched the water move beneath me, slow, patient, unhurried. It didn't care about clocks or schedules or anywhere it was supposed to be. It just flowed. I wanted to be more like that. A cyclist passed behind me, wheels hissing on the wet pavement. I didn't turn around. I just listened to the sound fade into the distance, mixing with the rain until I couldn't tell one from the other. The night felt infinite. Not in a scary way, in a beautiful way, like there was room for everything, room for me. Eventually, I pushed away from the railing and continued on. The streets on the other side of the bridge were more familiar. I knew I was getting closer to home, but I didn't hurry. I let each step be its own small journey, each breath, its own moment. By the time I reached my neighborhood, the rain had softened again to that fine mist I loved. The streets here were lined with trees, old oaks and maples, their leaves dark and dripping. The sidewalk was covered with fallen petals from the early spring blossoms. I stepped on them carefully, not wanting to disturb their quiet rest. At the corner, I passed the little bodega where I bought my morning coffee. It was closed now, grate pulled down, but a light was on in the apartment above. The family who ran it, living their quiet life over the store. I knew them slightly. A wave here, a few words about the weather there. The small intimacies of shared geography. My building came into view at last. An old brick walk-up, with a heavy wooden door and a small courtyard in front. The courtyard had a single tree, a Japanese maple, and in the rain it looked like something from a dream, delicate and red-leafed, its branches bowing under the weight of the water. I stood for a moment and looked at it. Then I looked up at my own window, the lamp I'd left on, warm and patient, waiting for me to come home. I took a deep breath of the rain-washed air, cool and clean and alive. And I thought about how this walk had been exactly what I needed. Not to get anywhere, not to accomplish anything, just to be in the world for a little while, just to move through it slowly and notice what was there. I closed my umbrella, letting the mist settle on my hair and face. It felt like a blessing, gentle and cool and kind. The rain had been my companion all night, my guide through the quiet hours. And now it was time to go inside. But even as I climbed the steps to my door, I carried the walk with me. All those streets and storefronts, all those lights reflecting in puddles, all those small moments of beauty I might have missed if I'd just hurried home. The city had given me a gift tonight, and I had been awake enough to receive it. Before I went inside, I turned one last time to look at the street. The rain was still falling, the lights were still glowing. Somewhere out there, other people were having their own quiet moments. In diners, on trains, under awnings, we were all part of the same night. And that thought filled me with a soft, warm peace. Our third story is called Night Market Food Stop. I wasn't planning to go to the night market that evening, but as I walked through the rain-washed streets, I caught the smell of something wonderful drifting toward me. Ginger and garlic, soy sauce, and something sweet. And my feet changed direction without asking permission. The night market wasn't far. It was tucked into a wide alley between two tall buildings, strung with lights and crowded with stalls. Even in the rain, it was alive. I'd discovered this market months ago on another rainy night when I was feeling restless. It was one of those places that felt like a secret, not listed in guidebooks, not crowded with tourists, just locals and late-night wanderers like me, looking for something warm and good. The stalls were covered with awnings and tarps, protecting the food and the vendors from the weather. Steam rose from every surface. Griddles sizzled, pots bubbled. I walked slowly down the center of the alley, taking it all in. The first stall I passed was selling dumplings, handmade, each one pleated with care and dropped into boiling water that sent up clouds of steam. The vendor was an older woman with quick hands and a patient expression. She didn't call out to customers. She didn't need to. The smell did the work for her. Next to her, a young man was grilling skewers of meat, turning them slowly over glowing coals. The fat dripped and sizzled, sending up little bursts of flame. The smoke mixed with the rain, creating a haze that caught the string lights above. I walked deeper into the market, past stalls selling noodles and fried rice, pancakes and buns, soups that looked rich and golden. There was a stall devoted entirely to tofu, soft squares floating in spicy broth, crispy triangles arranged on paper plates. Another sold only eggs, tea eggs, soy eggs, century eggs with their mysterious dark centers. Every stall was its own little world, with its own specialty and its own devoted customers. I finally stopped at a stall I knew well. It was run by a middle-aged couple, husband and wife, I assumed, from the way they moved around each other with practiced ease. They sold noodle soup, hand-pulled noodles in a rich, cloudy broth, topped with braised beef and green onions, and a soft-boiled egg cut in half. I'd eaten here a dozen times before. It was always perfect. The woman recognized me as I stepped under their awning. She didn't speak much English, and my Mandarin was limited to a few food words, but we had our own language of nods and smiles. "The usual?" she asked in her language, miming the motion of pulling noodles. I nodded. "Yes, please." She smiled and called something to her husband, who was already ladling broth into a deep bowl. While I waited, I found a spot on a plastic stool near the stall's counter. The stools were low and a little wobbly, but there was something charming about them. They forced you to sit close to the ground, close to the food, close to the experience. Around me, other customers ate in contented silence. A man in a business suit, his tie loosened, slurping noodles from a paper bowl. Two teenage girls sharing a plate of fried dumplings, laughing at something on one of their phones. An elderly woman eating slowly, methodically, savoring each bite. The rain continued to fall beyond the awning, but under here, we were dry and warm. My soup arrived. The woman set it before me with a small nod. A deep bowl filled nearly to the brim with golden broth. The noodles were thick and chewy, piled high in the center. The beef was dark and tender, glistening with sauce. The egg sat perfectly on top, its yolk bright orange through the thin veil of white. And over everything, a scatter of green onions and cilantro, fragrant and fresh. I breathed in the steam and felt something in me relax. Eating slowly is an underrated pleasure. So often I hurried through meals, at my desk, on the subway, standing in my kitchen between tasks. But here, with the rain falling and the market humming around me, I had nowhere else to be. I picked up my chopsticks and lifted a tangle of noodles from the broth. They were slippery and steaming, and I blew on them gently before bringing them to my mouth. The first bite was always the best. The noodles were chewy and toothsome. The broth was rich and savory, and somewhere in the background I could taste ginger and star anise, and something I couldn't name. I ate slowly, savoring each bite. The beef fell apart on my tongue. The egg yolk, when I finally cut into it, ran thick and golden into the soup, enriching the broth. The green onions added freshness, brightness, a little crunch. Around me, the market continued its gentle bustle. Vendors called to each other in familiar tones. Customers came and went. The rain drummed softly on the tarps overhead. I was perfectly content. When my bowl was half empty, I paused to take in my surroundings more fully. The stall across from me was selling scallion pancakes. Flat, golden, glistening with oil. The vendor was a young man with quick hands, pressing dough and folding it, pressing and folding, and sliding it onto the griddle where it sizzled and crisped. Next to him, an older woman was making something I didn't recognize. Some kind of stuffed bun, filled with what looked like sweet red bean paste. She pinched the tops closed with practiced fingers, creating little pleated pouches that she then dropped into a bamboo steamer. I thought about how many meals this market had witnessed, how many people had sat on these same plastic stools, eaten from these same paper bowls, felt the same quiet satisfaction. Food was such a simple thing, and yet it connected us to the people who made it, to the people who ate beside us, to the traditions and cultures that shaped each recipe. This bowl of noodles was more than just dinner. It was a small act of care from the couple who ran the stall to me. I finished my soup, tipping the bowl to drink the last of the broth. It was rich and warming, and I could feel it spreading through me like a kind of medicine. When I set the empty bowl down, the woman smiled at me. "Good?" she asked. "Very good," I said, nodding emphatically. "Very, very good." She laughed and waved her hand, as if to say it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was everything. I paid and thanked them both, then stood to leave. But I wasn't quite ready to leave the market yet. My stomach was full, but my heart wanted more of this atmosphere. I walked slowly back through the alley, this time just looking. At a dessert stall, I watched a woman pour batter onto a waffle iron shaped like little fish. She filled each fish with sweet custard before closing the iron and waiting for them to cook. The smell of vanilla and sugar filled the air. At another stall, a man was making bubble tea with practiced efficiency, scooping tapioca pearls, pouring tea over ice, sealing cups with a machine that pressed plastic lids into place. His line was long, but he worked through it steadily, unfazed. I stopped to buy a few fish-shaped waffles. Taiyaki, I thought they were called. They were warm and golden, the custard inside sweet and creamy. I ate one as I walked, careful not to let the filling drip onto my coat. The rain had lightened while I was eating my soup. Now it was barely more than a mist, turning the lights into soft halos. The wet pavement reflected everything: the stalls, the people, the steam rising into the air. It looked like a scene from a movie, something beautiful and fleeting. Near the end of the alley, I found a small stall I hadn't noticed before. It was selling something that looked like small, round pancakes, each one topped with a different ingredient: sesame seeds, green onion, dried shrimp, something red I didn't recognize. The vendor was an old man with kind eyes and weathered hands. He saw me, looking, and gestured for me to come closer. "Try," he said in English, holding out a sample. I accepted the small pancake and bit into it. It was crispy on the outside, slightly chewy on the inside, with a flavor I couldn't quite place. Earthy, slightly sweet, deeply satisfying. "What is this?" I asked. He said something in his own language, then shrugged and smiled, as if to say the translation didn't matter. He was right. It didn't. I bought 3 more and thanked him with a bow. As I reached the end of the alley, I turned back one last time to look at the market. It was still glowing, still steaming, still full of people seeking warmth and nourishment in the rain. This place was a gift, I realized, not just for the food, but for the feeling of it. The sense that on any night, no matter how dark or wet or lonely, there was somewhere you could go, somewhere you would be fed, somewhere you could sit among strangers and feel, somehow, less alone. I stepped out of the alley and back onto the regular street. The air here was cooler, cleaner, washed by the rain. But I carried the warmth of the market with me, the noodles in my stomach, the waffle in my hand, the taste of that mystery pancake still lingering on my tongue. And more than that, the faces I'd seen, the nods exchanged, the small kindnesses passed back and forth without words. Time 700 mins. I finished my waffle and tucked the extras into my bag for later. Then I opened my umbrella, even though the rain had nearly stopped, and continued on my way. The city felt softer now, gentler, like it was settling into sleep, and I was settling too. into this night, into this feeling, into the simple, profound comfort of a good meal on a rainy evening. I thought about the couple who had made my soup, how they did this every night, pulled noodles, ladled broth, fed hungry people who wandered in from the rain. There was something beautiful about that, about offering something so simple, so essential, night after night. We don't need grand gestures to make a difference. Sometimes a bowl of soup is enough. The streets grew quieter as I walked away from the market. The crowds thinned. The sounds of sizzling and conversation faded into the soft hush of the rain. But I wasn't lonely. I was full, not just in my stomach, but somewhere deeper. The night market had given me exactly what I needed. And as I walked on, I felt grateful. Grateful for the food, grateful for the rain, grateful for the city that held so many hidden treasures, waiting to be discovered on quiet, rainy nights. The journey continued, but my heart was already home. Story 4, Quiet Train Platform. The night market fades behind me as I walk down a quiet side street, the paper bag from the dumpling stall still warm against my chest. I've tucked it inside my jacket to protect it from the rain, and I can feel the gentle heat spreading through my sweater like a second heartbeat. The street narrows as I walk, the neon signs giving way to older buildings with small balconies and iron railings. Laundry hangs from some of them, despite the rain, forgotten perhaps. Or maybe the owners simply don't mind. The fabric drips steadily, adding its own rhythm to the night. I can see the train station ahead now, its entrance marked by a pale blue sign that glows softly in the mist. The letters are simple, practical, but something about their color feels welcoming on a night like this. Like a lighthouse guiding ships through fog, except the fog is rain and the ship is me, slightly damp and carrying dumplings. I smile at the thought as I approach the station entrance. The stairs leading down are wet, and I take them carefully, one hand on the metal railing that's cool and slick beneath my palm. Each step echoes slightly in the enclosed space, mixing with the distant rumble of a train somewhere deep in the tunnels below. The station is one of the older ones in the city, built decades ago when the subway system first expanded into this neighborhood. The tiles on the walls are cream-colored, with a thin green stripe running along the top. A design choice from another era that somehow still feels elegant. Some of the tiles are chipped or cracked, showing their age, but the overall effect is charming rather than neglected. I tap my transit card at the turnstile and push through, the mechanical click satisfying in the quiet station. There are only a handful of other people visible, scattered across the platform like characters in a late-night painting. Each one seems absorbed in their own world, their own story, their own reason for being here at this hour. I find a spot near a support column and lean against it, grateful for something solid to rest against. The column is wrapped in advertisements, most of them for things I don't need, but I study them anyway. A new streaming service, a language learning app, a travel agency promising affordable flights to places I've always wanted to visit. Maybe someday, I think. Maybe when the timing is right and the savings account is healthier and the courage finally arrives. For now, the adventure of a rainy Friday night in my own city feels like enough. The electronic sign above the platform indicates that my train is 7 minutes away. 7 minutes of quiet waiting, of existing in this in-between space. that belongs neither to the night market behind me nor the apartment ahead. I've always found something peaceful about train platforms at night. During the day, they're crowded and rushed, filled with people checking their phones and jostling for position. But late at night, they become something else entirely. Meditative spaces where time moves differently, where waiting becomes its own form of rest. I shift the paper bag inside my jacket and feel the warmth again, fainter now, but still present. The dumplings will make a perfect late-night snack when I get home, I think. Or maybe an early breakfast if I fall asleep before eating them. Either way, they're waiting for me, patient and warm. A woman walks past me on the platform, her heels clicking against the concrete in a steady rhythm. She's wearing a dark coat and carrying a briefcase, her expression tired but not unhappy. I wonder what kind of work keeps someone out this late on a Friday, whether she's coming from the office or from something more interesting. She stops a few meters away and sets her briefcase down, then pulls out her phone and checks something. The screen illuminates her face with a soft blue glow, and I see her smile at whatever she's reading. A text from someone she loves, perhaps, or good news she's been waiting for. I look away, not wanting to intrude on her moment, and turn my attention to the tunnel entrance instead. The tracks disappear into darkness, the metal rails gleaming faintly under the platform lights. Somewhere in that darkness, a train is approaching, carrying its own collection of late-night travelers. The platform has a particular smell that I've never been able to fully identify. Metal and electricity, and something almost organic, like the city itself is breathing through these underground spaces. It should be unpleasant, but somehow it isn't. It's just the smell of transit, of movement, of journeys beginning and ending. I notice a young man sitting on one of the platform benches, hunched over a sketchbook. His pencil moves quickly across the page, capturing something only he can see. Every few seconds, he looks up at the platform, then back down at his work, his concentration complete. Artists fascinate me, the way they can see the world as potential material for creation. I wonder what he's drawing, whether it's the platform itself, or the people on it, or something entirely from his imagination. Maybe he sees the same beauty in this moment that I do, the quiet poetry of strangers waiting together. The electronic sign updates, showing 5 minutes now until my train arrives. Time passes strangely when you're waiting, sometimes stretching and sometimes compressing in ways that don't follow any logical pattern. These last 2 minutes seem to pass in seconds. I pull out my phone to check if I have any messages, but the screen is empty except for the time. 11:47, it tells me. The night is getting older, but it doesn't feel old yet. It still feels full of potential, of quiet possibilities. I put the phone away and focus on the platform again, letting myself be fully present in this moment. The fluorescent lights hum softly overhead, a sound so constant that it becomes easy to forget. But when you listen for it, when you really pay attention, it becomes a kind of music. A group of 3 friends descends the stairs at the far end of the platform, their laughter echoing off the tiled walls. They're young, probably in their early 20s, dressed in clothes that suggest they've been somewhere fun tonight. One of them is telling a story, gesturing animatedly while the others listen and react. Their energy is different from the rest of the platform, bright and effervescent, but it doesn't feel disruptive somehow. It just adds another layer to the atmosphere, another texture to the late night tableau. They find a spot near the benches and continue their conversation, their voices carrying across the platform in fragments. I catch phrases here and there, something about a party and someone named Marcus, and a plan for tomorrow that involves brunch. I remember being that young, that full of plans and energy, and the certainty that the night would never end. I'm not old now, not really, but something has shifted in how I experience time. The nights feel precious now in a way they didn't then, each moment worth savoring rather than rushing through. Maybe that's what growing up really means, not losing enthusiasm, but gaining appreciation. The tunnel begins to glow with a distant light, the first sign that the train is approaching. I can feel a gentle wind starting to build, pushed ahead of the approaching cars. It's cool and slightly dusty, carrying the smell of the tunnels with it. The electronic sign now shows 2 minutes, and the people on the platform begin to stir. The woman with the briefcase picks it up and moves closer to the edge. The artist closes his sketchbook and tucks the pencil behind his ear. The group of friends pauses their conversation to gather their things. I push away from the column and join the quiet migration toward the platform edge. There's an unspoken choreography to this moment, everyone positioning themselves where the doors will open. Years of commuting teach you these things, the exact spots where the cars will stop, the doors that are less crowded. The light in the tunnel grows brighter, and now I can hear the train itself. That familiar rumble and squeal of metal on metal, a sound that means movement and progress, and home getting closer. There's something deeply satisfying about it, especially late at night, when the trains are less frequent and the wait feels longer. The train emerges from the tunnel like a creature surfacing from the deep, its headlights cutting through the station's artificial twilight. The brakes engage with a hiss, and the cars slow gradually, coming to rest with surprising precision. The doors slide open with a soft chime, and I step inside. The car I've entered is nearly empty, just a few scattered passengers in various states of rest. An elderly man dozes near the far door, his head nodding gently with the train's movement. A young woman reads a paperback book, so absorbed that she doesn't look up when the doors close. I choose a seat by the window, even though there's nothing to see but the tunnel walls rushing past. Old habits, I suppose. The window seat has always felt like a small luxury, a private viewing gallery for the world going by. The train begins to move, and I settle into the rhythm of the journey. The cars sway gently as they take a curve, and I let my body move with them. There's a kind of meditation in this too, in surrendering to the motion and letting the train carry you where you need to go. The paper bag inside my jacket has cooled now, but I don't mind. Room temperature dumplings are still delicious, especially the ones from that particular stall. I'm looking forward to eating them at my kitchen table, maybe with a cup of tea to warm me up after the rain. The train car has that particular late-night atmosphere that's different from any other time of day. The lights seem softer somehow, the sounds more muted. Everyone seems to exist in their own bubble, respecting each other's space and silence. The young woman with the book turns a page, and I catch a glimpse of the cover. It's a novel I read last year, one that left me thinking for days afterward. I want to tell her she's in for something special, But of course I don't. Some discoveries are better made alone. The train stops at the next station, and a few more passengers board. A couple holding hands, looking tired but content. A man in a delivery uniform, probably just ending his shift. They find their seats and settle in, becoming part of this temporary community. I lean my head against the cool glass of the window and close my eyes for a moment. Not to sleep, just to rest them, to let my other senses take over for a while. The train's rhythm becomes more pronounced when you're not looking. The clatter of the wheels a kind of lullaby. I think about the evening I've had, the diner and the street walk and the night market. Each moment connected to the next like beads on a string, forming something larger than its individual parts. A Friday night in the city, ordinary and extraordinary at the same time. The train announces the next stop, and I open my eyes to check where we are. 3 more stations until mine. Maybe 15 minutes if the train runs smoothly. I could use this time to think about nothing, to let my mind drift like a boat without a destination. Outside the window, the tunnel walls are a blur of gray and brown, occasionally broken by glimpses of infrastructure. Cables and pipes and mysterious panels that serve purposes I'll never understand. The hidden anatomy of the city, keeping everything running while we ride above and through it. The elderly man at the far end of the car wakes with a small start, checking his surroundings with the practiced eye of someone who's fallen asleep on trains before. He relaxes when he realizes he hasn't missed his stop, settling back into his seat with a soft sigh. I feel a moment of kinship with him, this stranger who shares my late-night journey. The train stops at another station, and the couple exits, still holding hands. They walk toward the stairs together, their steps synchronized in that unconscious way that people who know each other well often have. I watch them until the doors close, feeling something like hope for their continued happiness. The car is even quieter now, just me and the elderly man, and the woman with her book, and the delivery worker, who's already asleep. 4 strangers sharing space and time, connected by nothing but this train in this moment. It's a kind of intimacy, I think, even if none of us will remember the others tomorrow. 2 stations left now, and I can feel myself beginning to anticipate home. My apartment, waiting for me with its familiar shapes and sounds, its accumulated comfort. The key in the lock, the door swinging open, the relief of being back in my own space. But I'm not rushing this moment either. The train ride is part of the journey, not just a means to an end. I've learned to appreciate the in-between times, the transitions that connect one experience to the next. The train takes another curve, and the lights flicker briefly. Just a moment of dimness before they return to full brightness. A tiny glitch in the system that goes mostly unnoticed. I notice it though, filing it away as another small detail of this particular night. The woman with the book finally looks up, checking the station sign as we pull into the next stop. She's not getting off yet either, it seems, because she returns to her reading with a satisfied nod. I wonder how close to the end she is, whether she'll finish before she reaches home. 1 station left for me now, and I begin to gather myself for departure. It's a small thing, this mental preparation, but it feels necessary somehow. A way of honoring the transition from public space to private, from journey to arrival. The train accelerates out of the station, and I can feel it building speed for the final stretch. The tunnel walls blur faster now, the rhythm of the wheels quickening slightly. Almost home, I think, and the thought brings a warm contentment that starts in my chest and spreads outward. My station's name appears on the electronic display, accompanied by the announcement that we're approaching. I stand up carefully, holding the support pole as the train begins to slow. The other passengers remain seated, their journeys continuing beyond mine. The brakes engage smoothly, and the train glides to a stop with that familiar precision. The doors open with their chime, and I step out onto the platform. The air here is different from the station where I boarded, slightly fresher, closer to the surface. I pause for a moment to watch the train depart, its lights disappearing into the tunnel like a ship sailing into the night. Then I turn toward the stairs that lead up to the street, to the rain, to home. The station is almost empty at this hour. Just a security guard sitting in a booth near the exit and a cleaning crew working on the far platform. My footsteps echo as I walk toward the stairs, the sound somehow more noticeable in the emptiness. It's a comfortable solitude, though, not lonely, but peaceful. I climb the stairs slowly, not because I'm tired, but because there's no reason to rush. Each step brings me closer to the surface, to the rain that I can already hear pattering above. The sound grows louder as I ascend, a gentle welcome back to the world outside. The exit opens onto a small plaza surrounded by apartment buildings and a few closed shops. The rain is still falling steadily, creating a curtain of water that catches the light from the street lamps. I stand under the station's awning for a moment, adjusting to the transition from underground to open air. The paper bag inside my jacket is definitely cool now, but still waiting patiently for me. I check to make sure it's secure, then step out into the rain for the final walk home. My apartment is only 2 blocks from here, a distance I could cover quickly if I wanted to. But I don't want to rush. Not yet. The rain feels like an old friend now, something I've been walking through all evening. A few more minutes won't make any difference to my already damp clothes. I walk along the familiar sidewalk, passing buildings I see every day. They look different at night, though, especially in the rain. Windows glow with warm light from the apartments inside, each one a small stage showing fragments of other lives. Through one window, I see a family gathered around a television, the blue light flickering on their faces. Through another, a woman doing yoga in her living room, moving through poses with slow precision. Through a third, just an empty room with a lamp left on, waiting for someone to come home. I think about all the stories happening behind these windows, the ordinary dramas and comedies of daily life. Each apartment holds its own universe, complete with characters and plot lines and emotions I'll never know. The thought isn't sad, though, just expansive, a reminder of how much life exists in any given moment. My building comes into view now, its brick facade familiar and welcoming. It's not a fancy building, not modern or stylish, but it's been home for 3 years now. I know which stairs creak, which radiator makes noise, which neighbor plays piano on Sunday mornings. The entrance is sheltered by a small overhang, and I pause there to shake the rain from my jacket. The fabric is thoroughly damp now, but I don't mind. I'll hang it up when I get inside and let it dry, overnight, ready for the next adventure. I pull out my keys and unlock the front door, stepping into the building's quiet lobby. The familiar smell greets me, a mixture of cleaning products and old wood and the indefinable scent of home. The mailboxes line one wall, their brass numbers gleaming faintly in the low light. I check mine out of habit, even though I know there won't be anything at this hour. Empty, as expected, but the ritual feels comforting somehow. A small connection to the ordinary rhythms of daily life. The stairs to my floor curve upward gently, worn smooth by decades of footsteps. I climb them slowly, my body beginning to recognize that rest is coming soon. The dumplings shift slightly inside my jacket, reminding me of the late-night snack ahead. Time 600 Mers. On the second floor landing, I pass Mrs. Chen's door and notice the light still on inside. She's probably watching one of her drama series, the ones she tells me about when we meet in the hallway. I make a mental note to ask her about the latest episode next time I see her. My apartment is on the 3rd floor, at the end of the hall near the window. I chose it specifically for that window, which looks out over a small courtyard where a cherry tree blooms every spring. In winter, I can see into the apartments across the way, their windows lit like a living advent calendar. I reach my door and pause for a moment before unlocking it. Behind this door is my space, my sanctuary, my accumulated collection of comfort and memory. In just a few seconds, I'll be inside, and the evening's journey will reach its conclusion. The key turns smoothly in the lock, and the door swings open to welcome me home. And so the train ride that carried me through the city becomes a memory, filed away with all the other late-night journeys I've taken. The quiet platform, the swaying car, the strangers who shared the moment without knowing it. Each one a small poem in the larger anthology of this rainy evening. Now as I step across the threshold into my apartment, a new feeling settles over me. Not quite tiredness, but something deeper. The gentle pull of home, calling me to rest, to reset, to close this chapter of the night. The rain continues its patient song outside my window, and I know exactly how I want to spend these final hours. Tea and dumplings, and the slow, sweet ritual of settling in, the perfect ending to a perfect wandering. Story 5. Warm apartment reset. The door clicks shut behind me, and just like that, the world becomes smaller and softer. My apartment greets me with its familiar shadows, the shapes of furniture barely visible in the dim light from the window. I don't turn on the lights right away, letting my eyes adjust to the gentle darkness. The rain sounds different from inside, muted and distant, but still present. It taps against the window with a rhythm that feels like a lullaby, as if the night itself is trying to sing me to sleep. But there are still a few things I want to do before I close my eyes. I take off my damp jacket and hang it on the hook by the door, where it can drip onto the small mat I keep there for exactly this purpose. The paper bag inside is still intact, and I pull it out carefully, cradling the dumplings like the precious cargo they are. They've cooled to room temperature now, but they'll still be delicious. I set the bag on the kitchen counter and finally turn on a light, but not the overhead one. Instead, I switch on the small lamp on the counter, the one with the warm amber bulb that makes everything look golden. It's the perfect light for late-night snacking, gentle enough to be cozy, but bright enough to see what I'm doing. My shoes come off next, and I line them up by the door to dry. They're not too wet, thanks to the careful walking I did through the deeper puddles. But a night by the radiator will do them good, preparing them for whatever tomorrow brings. I walk through the apartment in my socks, feeling the familiar texture of the wooden floor beneath my feet. The boards creak in their usual places, a language I've learned to understand over the years. This one near the couch, that one by the bookshelf, another one at the entrance to the bedroom. In the bathroom, I turn on the faucet and let warm water run over my hands. The sensation is almost startling after hours of cool rain, a sudden reminder of how cold I'd actually become without noticing. I wash my face too, the water sluicing away the last traces of the city night. When I look in the mirror, I see someone who's had an adventure. My hair is slightly tousled from the rain, my cheeks flushed from the walking, my eyes bright despite the late hour. I look content, I think, and the thought makes me smile. I change out of my damp clothes and into my softest pajamas, the ones with the worn flannel that feels like being wrapped in clouds. They've been through so many wash cycles that the fabric has achieved that perfect state of broken-in comfort. The transformation is immediate, my body relaxing into the familiar embrace. Back in the kitchen, I put the kettle on for tea. It's a ritual that marks the end of every evening, as reliable as the sunrise that marks the beginning of each morning. The kettle begins to hum as it heats, a sound so domestic and reassuring that it feels like the acoustic equivalent of a hug. While the water heats, I open the paper bag and examine my dumplings. They're still beautiful despite the journey, their pleated edges intact, their filling visible through the thin, translucent wrapper. I count them again. 5 perfect little packages of pork and scallion and ginger. I arrange them on a small plate and find my favorite dipping sauce in the refrigerator. It's the one I mix myself. Soy sauce and rice vinegar, and just a touch of chili oil. The proportions have been refined over years of experimentation until they reach their current perfection. The kettle clicks off, and I pour the water over the tea leaves in my favorite mug. It's a large mug, slightly chipped on the handle from a long ago accident, but that imperfection just makes it more mine. The tea I've chosen is chamomile, classic and calming, perfect for the final hours of the night. I carry everything to the small table by the window, the one where I sit to watch the world outside. The rain is still falling steadily, streaming down the glass in patterns that change every second. I've spent countless hours at this table, in sunshine and rain, in morning light, in midnight darkness. I sit down and take a moment to appreciate the scene before me. The plate of dumplings glistening slightly in the lamplight. The mug of tea sending up gentle curls of steam. The rain painting abstract art on the window. This is the kind of moment that doesn't need to be photographed or shared. It's complete in itself, requiring nothing but my presence to make it meaningful. I pick up the first dumpling with my chopsticks and dip it in the sauce. The taste is exactly what I was hoping for. Savory and rich with that perfect balance of meat and aromatics. The grandmother at the night market knows what she's doing, that's clear. Years of practice distilled into each precisely folded package. I eat slowly, savoring each bite, letting the food warm me from the inside. The tea adds its own warmth, the chamomile flowers releasing their gentle herbal sweetness. Together, they create a symphony of comfort that spreads through my body like contentment, made physical. Between bites, I gaze out the window at the rain-soaked world beyond. The courtyard below is dark, except for a single lamp that illuminates the cherry tree. Its bare branches catch the rain and let it fall, patient as always for spring to come again. In the apartments across the way, Most of the windows have gone dark now. Just a few lights remain, other night owls like me, savoring the quiet hours before sleep. I wonder if any of them are eating late-night dumplings too, though I doubt their dumplings could match these. The second dumpling is just as good as the first, maybe better now that my palate has adjusted. I've learned to taste the different components, the subtle sweetness of the cabbage mixed in with the pork, the slight heat of the ginger, warming but not overwhelming. My apartment feels especially cozy tonight, maybe because of the contrast with the rain outside. The walls seem to embrace me, the ceiling to shelter me, the floor to support me. It's not a large space, but it's mine, and that makes it feel infinite. I've arranged it over the years to maximize comfort and minimize clutter. Every object has its place and its purpose, from the books on the shelves to the plants on the windowsill. The plants are sleeping now, their leaves still in the darkness, but I know they're there, growing slowly. 3 dumplings down, 2 to go, and the tea is at the perfect temperature for drinking. I take a long sip and feel the warmth spread down my throat into my chest. Chamomile has always been my go-to for nights like this. Its mild sedative effects exactly what I need. The rain seems to have intensified slightly, the drops falling harder now against the window. I can hear it more clearly too, a rushing sound like a distant river flowing past my building. It's the kind of rain that makes you grateful for walls and roofs, for the human ingenuity that created shelter. I finish the 4th dumpling and sit back in my chair, giving my stomach a moment to register the satisfaction. 1 dumpling left, the last of the treasure, waiting patiently on the plate. I decide to save it for a moment, to extend the pleasure just a little longer. While I wait, I think back over the evening, all the places I've been and the moments I've experienced. The diner with its worn booths and excellent pie. The rainy streets reflecting neon like watercolor paintings. The night market with its sounds and smells and human warmth. The quiet train platform where strangers waited together. The train ride that carried me home through the tunnels beneath the city. And now this, the final scene, eating dumplings by the window while rain falls outside. It's been a perfect Friday night, I think, even though nothing particularly dramatic happened. No major revelations or life-changing encounters. Just the quiet accumulation of good moments, each one adding to the sense of well-being I feel now. I eat the final dumpling slowly, appreciating every last bite. When it's gone, I dip my finger in the remaining sauce and taste it, not wanting to waste anything. Then I lean back and sigh with contentment, my hunger satisfied, my body warm. The tea is nearly finished too, just a few sips left in the bottom of the mug. I drink them slowly, letting each one contribute to the growing drowsiness in my limbs. Sleep is coming. I can feel it approaching like a gentle wave, unhurried but inevitable. But first, a few more tasks to complete, small rituals that prepare my home and myself for rest. I carry the dishes to the sink and rinse them quickly, leaving them to wash properly in the morning. The kitchen returns to its tidy state, everything in its place. I walk through the apartment, turning off the few lights that are still on. The kitchen lamp first, then the hall light, then the one in the bathroom. Each click brings the darkness closer, but it's a friendly darkness, the kind that holds you rather than hides from you. In the bedroom, The street light from outside provides just enough illumination to see by. My bed is already made from this morning. The covers pulled up neatly, the pillows waiting for me. I've always been grateful for past me who makes the bed, for present me who gets to climb into it. I check my phone one last time, not expecting any messages, but checking anyway. There's one from my mother, sent hours ago, asking if I've eaten dinner. I smile and type a quick reply, telling her about the dumplings, knowing she'll appreciate the detail. Then I plug in the phone and set it on the nightstand, face down to avoid any late-night disturbances. The alarm is already set for tomorrow, though I might sleep through it if the rain continues. There's nothing urgent on my Saturday schedule. No reason not to sleep as long as I want. I pull back the covers and slide into bed, and the sensation is exactly what I've been waiting for all evening. The sheets are cool at first, then quickly warm with my body heat. The pillow cradles my head at the perfect angle, supporting without pressing. I lie on my back for a moment, looking up at the ceiling. In the dim light, the shadows form patterns I've seen 1,000 times, familiar and comforting. The rain continues its steady rhythm outside, a lullaby that asks nothing but my attention. My body is beginning to relax in earnest now, each muscle group releasing its tension one by one. My feet, tired from walking, nestle deeper into the mattress. My shoulders, held tight against the cold rain, finally drop and soften. I roll onto my side and pull the blanket up to my chin, creating a cocoon of warmth. This is my favorite sleeping position, curled slightly with one arm under the pillow. It's the position I always end up in, no matter how I start the night. The rain sounds closer somehow from this position, as if the window has moved nearer to the bed. I can hear the individual drops now, each one a tiny percussion instrument playing its part in the larger symphony. Together, they create a wall of white noise that muffles the city beyond. My thoughts begin to drift, no longer following logical paths, but wandering freely. I think about the grandmother at the night market, whether she's home now, whether she's thinking about her own bed. I think about the woman on the train with her book, whether she's finished it yet. I think about the diner waitress and her kind eyes, the coffee maker at the bookstore cafe, the security guard at the station, all the people who made this evening possible, each one contributing something to the larger experience. I send them silent gratitude, wherever they are now. The warmth of the bed is seeping into my core now, and my eyelids have grown heavy. I let them close, not fighting the drowsiness anymore, welcoming it like an old friend. The darkness behind my eyes is peaceful, empty, in the most comforting way. I feel my breathing slow, each inhale deeper, each exhale longer. The rhythm matches the rain somehow, as if my body is synchronizing with the weather. In, out, the simple miracle of respiration carrying me towards sleep. My apartment wraps around me like a protective shell, its walls keeping out the world. Tomorrow I'll venture out again, continuing the endless exploration of the city I love. But for now, there's only this moment, this breath, this rain. The last thought before sleep takes me is simple and complete. I am home, I am warm, I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. And with that thought held gently in my mind, I let go of consciousness and drift into dreams. The rain continues outside, a faithful companion through the night, and the city sleeps around me, millions of hearts beating in the darkness, each one finding its own way home. The reset is complete. The apartment holds me safe, and Friday night becomes a Saturday morning in the soft silence between raindrops. Everything is exactly as it should be, and so ends our second collection of rainy bedtime diaries. Tonight, we wandered through the city together, from the amber glow of a late-night diner to rain-soaked streets reflecting neon, from the warmth and bustle of the night market to the quiet contemplation of a train platform after midnight, and finally, home to the simple pleasures of tea and dumplings and a bed waiting with open arms. I hope these stories have wrapped around you like a warm blanket. I hope the rain outside your window or the rain in your imagination is singing you toward rest. And I hope you feel even just a little that peaceful exhaustion that comes from a day well lived. Let your eyes close now if they haven't already. Let your breathing slow, your muscles soften, your thoughts drift like leaves on a stream. The world will be there tomorrow, patient and full of possibilities. But tonight, there's nothing more you need to do. Nothing more you need to think about. Nothing more you need to be. You've already done enough. You've already been enough. You are enough exactly as you are in this exact moment. If these stories helped you relax tonight, consider returning for our next episode. There are more rainy nights ahead, more quiet corners of the city to explore, more gentle moments waiting to be shared. Until then, sleep well, dream sweetly, and know that the rain will always be here to keep you company. Good night.